The palace of Zithara stretched across the sky like a shining jewel. Towers of silver and crystal reflected the twin suns, and gardens floated in the air, held by powerful magic that the Zitharians had mastered centuries ago. The people admired their royal family, proud and beautiful, ruling wisely over their advanced world. But inside the palace, not everything was bright. Behind the golden doors of the royal wing, a princess sat alone, hidden from everyone's eyes. Her name was Lyra. She was young and clever, with the intelligence of a ruler and the heart of a dreamer, but her face was cursed. Her sisters, envy had poisoned their hearts, had cast a forbidden spell on her. A glowing scar, strange and unnatural, ran across Lyra's face. Wherever she went, people stared with fear or pity. They whispered words that cut deeper than any blade. She is cursed. Stay away from her. A dangerous mark on the royal bloodline. Lyra could not bear it. She wrapped herself in a delicate, shimmering veil that hid her features completely. No one saw the light in her eyes, the soft curve of her lips, or the gentle strength in her expression. She wandered the palace quietly, avoiding the eyes of courtiers, advisors, and even her own family. Every day she walked through the secret gardens above the palace, where flowers floated in the air, glowing faintly like stars. Here she could breathe freely. Here she could remember who she was before the curse, before the whispers, before her sister's jealousy had taken so much from her. Still, loneliness was a heavy weight. The other princesses, the ones who had cursed her, smiled to the court and to the world, their faces perfect and untouchable. Lyra felt the distance grow between them, as if a river of shame and fear had risen and divided their family forever. She spoke to no one, not even her closest servants. Only the gardens knew her secrets, the silent fountains and floating petals, the soft songs of birds with feathers of crystal. She practiced magic there, not to harm, but to keep herself safe and sharp. She practiced the arts of diplomacy and strategy, reading ancient texts left by her ancestors. Even with a scar on her face, her mind remained brilliant. One afternoon, as Lyra leaned over a fountain, tracing her fingers across the water's surface, she heard voices in the city below. Zithara's markets were alive with merchants calling out wares, citizens bargaining, and travelers from distant worlds arriving. Among the voices, one stood out, a deep, calm, fearless tone that made her heart quicken with curiosity. It was a human. Humans were rare on Zithara. They had no magic like the Zitharians, no ability to float gardens or bend light, but they were known for their courage, cleverness, and strange stubbornness. Stories of humans spread across the galaxy. They were explorers, warriors, and diplomats who faced danger without hesitation. They were unpredictable, and that unpredictability made Lyra's heart stir. The human arrived at the palace gates, not with a grand parade, but with quiet confidence. His name was Ethan. He carried no magic, yet his armor and the tools at his belt showed that he was ready for anything. His eyes scanned the palace with curiosity and intelligence, noticing things that even the royal guards did not. Lyra watched him from her hidden tower. She could see the way he moved, deliberate and calm, how he examined the architecture and the walls. There was no fear in him, no hesitation. That was unusual. Most outsiders either bowed nervously or fled from the rumors of the cursed princess. Lyra's curiosity grew. Who was this human? Why was he not afraid of her family or of the palace itself? She watched for hours, hiding in shadows as he spoke with the palace guards, asking intelligent questions and studying the structure with interest. His presence felt different, like a fresh wind had entered a room that had been closed for too long. The sisters, of course, noticed the visitor. They smiled at him, showing perfect charm, and then whispered among themselves. Their jealousy of Lyra's hidden brilliance only grew. Perhaps he will see the curse, one sister said, her voice sharp with spite. Perhaps he will fear her, another added, but Ethan's attention was not on them. He glanced upward toward the towers where Lyra hid, sensing something unusual. He did not know it was the cursed princess. He only felt the presence of someone intelligent, someone strong, someone hidden yet commanding attention. Lyra's heart beat faster. She had never seen a human act so boldly in the palace. Most would have turned back at the gates, afraid of her family, afraid of the unknown, or terrified by the stories of her curse. Yet this one walked freely, as if the palace and its magic were part of an interesting puzzle, not a threat. That night, Lyra could not sleep. She thought of the human's calm, his fearless eyes, his clever hands that examined the walls, the gates, the gardens. Something about him made her feel hope. Hope she had not felt in years. Maybe, she thought, humans were different. Maybe, just maybe, not all beings would fear her or the curse. The next morning, she ventured a little closer to the city gates, keeping to the shadows. She watched Ethan speak to the royal advisors, explaining technology and concepts foreign to Zythera but fascinating. He spoke with respect, asking questions, listening carefully, and laughing politely when someone told a story. He seemed kind. Even in a world where fear and suspicion were the norm, he carried trust and honesty. Lyra realized she wanted to meet him, to know him, to understand what it was about humans that made them so brave. But fear still held her back. What if he saw her face? What if he ran, or worse, whispered the same cruel rumors as everyone else? She tightened her veil and retreated to the highest tower, looking out across the city, thinking of a way to learn more without revealing herself. Days passed. Ethan explored the city, meeting merchants, scientists, and guards. Everywhere he went, he asked questions, solved small problems, and noticed details others missed. Slowly, Lyra's admiration grew into fascination. She saw his hands fixing a broken energy conduit, his mind designing a new irrigation system, and his calm courage when a minor fire broke out in the market. No one panicked. Everyone followed his instructions, amazed at his skill and bravery. Lyra began leaving small gifts for him in places she knew he would pass. A strange flower that glowed softly at night, a crystal that reflected sunlight like a rainbow, a note written in careful, elegant script praising his courage. Ethan noticed these tokens but did not know who left them. He smiled at the mystery, sensing kindness and intelligence behind the gestures. The sisters, watching from their high towers, became angrier. Their plan to isolate and shame Lyra was failing. Someone else, a human, had begun to admire her even from afar. They could not understand why. How could a human see her when all of Zythera fears the curse? One sister whispered, fuming. Lyra, in the shadows, felt a small, growing warmth in her heart. For the first time since the curse, she imagined that she might not be alone. Perhaps the world was not entirely cruel. Perhaps courage, kindness, and intelligence could see past appearances. And in the quiet of her tower, she made a small, daring decision. She would not hide forever. She would watch him more closely, learn from him, and maybe one day she would reveal herself. The thought was frightening, but for the first time it was also thrilling. The princess in shadows, cursed by jealousy and magic, had found a spark of hope. And somewhere below, the human warrior, unaware of the secret observer above, continued to explore Zythera with calm courage, unknowingly drawing the princess toward a future she had never dared to imagine. The twin suns rose over Zythera, casting golden light across the floating gardens and silver towers of the palace. Birds with crystal feathers glided between the towers, their songs echoing softly. Inside the palace, life moved with careful precision, but one visitor had changed the rhythm of everything. Ethan, the human warrior, had not rested since he arrived. His curiosity and focus drew the attention of everyone around him. Guards watched him warily. Courtiers whispered behind their hands. And in her hidden tower, Princess Lyra observed silently, her heart beating faster every time he appeared. Today, Ethan was to meet the royal council. His mission was straightforward: deliver new technology that could help Zythera improve its energy systems and defense grids. But for Ethan, every mission was also a chance to understand a new world. He did not rush. He did not act superior. He moved with respect, listening carefully to questions, studying the palace's design and observing every small detail. Lyra watched as he walked through the grand hall. Even the guards, who were trained to handle royalty, seemed unsure how to respond to him. He asked simple questions that made sense. He noticed small flaws in the magical energy conduits that powered the palace, and he suggested improvements that even the royal engineers had overlooked. "He is unusual," one of the palace advisors whispered. "He does not fear us. He does not fear the palace, and he does not fear the curse. That was what everyone whispered about when they spoke of Lyra. Her sisters had ensured that no one dared approach her. The scar on her face glowed faintly at night, and the magic surrounding it made the air tense. People avoided her, but Ethan seemed indifferent to fear itself. Lyra could hardly believe it. She had watched him for days now. Every time he passed under her tower, she wanted to reach out, to speak, to see if he would truly notice her. But she stayed hidden. Her veil covered her face, her hands trembled, and her heart raced. What if he looked at her and saw only the curse? What if he was repelled like everyone else? Ethan did notice her, though not in the way people expected. As he walked past the tower one afternoon, he paused, tilting his head upward. His eyes, sharp and observant, scanned the balcony and the shadows. Lyra froze. Did he see her? Could he see her behind the veil? He did not shout or draw attention. Instead, he smiled faintly, almost to himself, and continued walking. It was enough. Lyra's heart soared. Someone had seen her presence without fear, without judgment. That alone felt like a miracle. Later that evening, as the sun set and the sky turned pink and orange, Lyra left her tower quietly. She moved through secret corridors that only she knew, following the soft hum of the city outside. She wanted to see him closer, to understand why he seemed so fearless. She did not intend to meet him yet. She only wanted to observe, to learn. Ethan, meanwhile, had begun exploring the outer gardens of the palace. He was fascinated by Zithara's floating flora and delicate energy bridges. He knelt by a fountain, studying the way the water moved, noting the magic that kept the flowers suspended in air. He spoke softly to himself as if the world needed explanations. Lyra watched from a hidden corner. She noticed how careful he was with the environment. He did not disturb the plants, he did not touch the magic that kept the flowers afloat. Yet he learned. He learned quickly, easily, and with respect. For the first time in years, Lyra felt something she had almost forgotten. Hope. Perhaps she was not entirely trapped in her curse. Perhaps the world had more to offer than isolation and fear. And perhaps humans, these strange, courageous beings, held answers she could not imagine. Days turned into weeks. Lyra continued her secret observation. She left small gifts, a glowing flower, a crystal prism, a note with careful handwriting. Ethan found each one and smiled. He studied the gifts, curious, but he did not know who left them. He felt a sense of kindness in the unknown giver. He felt respect, intelligence, and strength. Lyra's sisters noticed the change in the palace. Their careful schemes to humiliate her seemed ineffective now. One sister said angrily, "Why does the human not fear her? Why does he not speak against her like all the others?" The other sister frowned, her green eyes cold. "It is impossible. No one ignores her curse. No one ignores her power. Perhaps she is not as weak as we thought." Their jealousy grew, but Lyra no longer cared about their whispers. She felt a new determination. She would continue to observe him, to understand his bravery, and perhaps to find a way to connect with him without revealing her scar too soon. Then came the day when chance and courage collided. A minor accident occurred in the palace gardens. A floating platform supporting a group of delicate flowers began to crack. A guard was trapped on it, panicking. The platform trembled and swayed dangerously, threatening to fall. Lyra was nearby, hidden behind a marble pillar. Her heart raced as she watched. She could have used magic to stop the platform, but the energy required might expose her presence. Ethan acted immediately. Without hesitation, he jumped onto the platform, carefully balancing, and reached the guard. He examined the structure and quickly tied stabilizing cords he carried. Using his tools, he reinforced the platform. Within moments, the danger was gone. Lyra's breath caught. No one else had acted so quickly. Humans, she realized, had courage that did not rely on magic. Their fearlessness came from their mind, their skill, and their heart. He had risked himself to save another, without hesitation, without concern for reward. When the situation calmed, Ethan noticed the shadow at the edge of the garden. He turned slightly as if sensing her presence, but he did not call out. His eyes were steady, kind, and curious. Lyra felt seen for the first time in years without judgment. She felt that someone truly understood courage, even when it was not tied to magic or status. That evening, she dared something new. She left a note near the garden fountain, folded carefully, and wrote, "I have watched you. Your courage is rare. You do not fear the unknown, and you do not judge by appearances. That is why I admire you." Ethan found the note the next day. He read it slowly, a smile spreading across his face. He looked around the garden as if he could sense her presence, though he saw no one. "Someone remarkable," he murmured. "I must meet her someday." Lyra's heart soared at his words. Even though she remained hidden, even though her veil still covered her face, a bridge had formed between them. Courage and respect had created a connection stronger than fear, stronger than magic, stronger than any curse. Her sisters, watching from the palace balconies, were furious. "How is this possible?" one whispered. "We cursed her. We tried to isolate her. And yet he admires her." The other sister's face was pale with jealousy. "This human, he sees something in her we cannot understand. He does not fear her. Perhaps he is not like the others. Perhaps—" Lyra, hidden in her tower, did not hear their words. She only felt hope, the first real hope she had known in years. For the first time, she dared to imagine a future not defined by fear or shame. And somewhere below, in the gardens of Zithera, Ethan prepared for the next day of exploration, unaware that the princess he had noticed in passing was watching him from above. A spark had been lit between them, small but powerful. It was a spark that could grow into trust, friendship, and perhaps something greater. The human warrior had arrived. The princess in shadows had found her first reason to believe that she might not remain hidden forever. The story of courage, trust, and discovery was only beginning, and both of them, in their own way, had taken the first steps toward a future neither had dared to dream of. The days passed quickly on Zithera. The twin suns rose and set, casting shifting lights over the floating gardens, silver towers, and crystal bridges. For Princess Lyra, every day was a mixture of hope and fear. She watched Ethan, the human warrior, exploring the palace and city with calm courage. Every time he acted without fear, her admiration grew. Every time he smiled at the mysteries of Zithera, her heart lifted. But Lyra was cautious. She still hid behind her veil, and though she left gifts and notes for Ethan, she did not yet reveal herself. Her sister's jealousy and the curse's power weighed heavily on her mind. She could not risk revealing her scar too soon, not when the palace still whispered her shame. One evening, the floating gardens shimmered with soft lights, reflecting the magic that kept the flowers suspended in air. Lyra slipped quietly from her tower and walked along the hidden pathways that only she knew. She moved toward the lower gardens where Ethan often worked with the palace engineers, studying the energy bridges and conduits. Ethan was there, kneeling beside a fountain, examining a broken energy crystal. The crystal, normally stable, flickered with strange light, threatening to disrupt the floating platform above. He muttered to himself, calculating, measuring, adjusting. Even without magic, his hands worked with precision and care. Lyra watched silently from behind a pillar. Her heart pounded. She wanted to speak to him. She wanted to thank him for his courage, for his intelligence, for seeing her as more than a story, more than a cursed princess. But fear held her back. She remained hidden, observing him. Suddenly, a small tremor shook the garden. A floating platform above the fountain began to crack. A group of delicate flowers, suspended by magic, wavered dangerously. A palace guard standing on the edge panicked and nearly fell. Lyra gasped. She could see disaster coming, and instinctively her magic reacted. A soft barrier formed, barely visible, protecting the guard from falling. Ethan, noticing the trembling platform, acted immediately. Without hesitation, he leaped onto the structure, steadying himself, and reached the guard. He assessed the situation quickly and tied stabilizing cords he carried in his pack. With careful movements, he repaired the structure, reinforcing it with human engineering and precise adjustments. Within moments, the danger passed. Lyra's breath caught. No one had acted so swiftly, so fearlessly. Humans, she realized, had courage that did not depend on magic. They relied on their minds, their skill, and their determination. Ethan had risked himself to save another without hesitation. After the incident, Ethan noticed something in the shadows. A faint shimmer at the edge of the garden. He turned, scanning carefully. His eyes were calm, kind, and curious. He did not shout or panic. Lyra, hidden behind a pillar, felt a thrill. He had noticed her, and yet he did not recoil. He did not judge. Days later, Lyra's courage grew. She decided to take a small risk. She left a note near the fountain where Ethan worked, folded neatly and sealed with a small crystal. It read, "I see your courage. I admire your skill. You do not fear what others fear. That is why I watch you." Ethan found the note and smiled. He looked around the garden, but he saw no one. "Someone remarkable," he murmured. "I hope to meet her someday." The sisters noticed the growing bond between Lyra and the human. Their whispers were sharp, their jealousy burning. "Why does he admire her?" one sister hissed. "We cursed her. We humiliated her. He should fear her." "He is different," the other sister replied. "He sees beyond appearances." "It is impossible yet." "It is happening." Lyra, hidden from view, did not hear them. She only felt a new determination. Perhaps humans could see past fear and judgment. Perhaps courage and kindness could bridge worlds. One afternoon, the Palace Council announced a tour of the ancient archives. It was a rare opportunity, as the archives were usually restricted to royalty and scholars. Ethan was invited to assist with technical equipment. Lyra saw this as a chance. She slipped away from her tower and followed him quietly, using secret passages that only she knew. Inside the archives, massive shelves of glowing scrolls and crystal tablets towered above them. The air hummed with the faint energy of ancient magic. Ethan examined a complex diagram of the city's energy flow. Lyra, unseen, watched him work. She noted how he approached the problem calmly, studying the ancient Zitherian methods while thinking of ways to improve them with his human technology. Suddenly, a shelf above them shifted. Loose energy crystals rattled, threatening to fall. Ethan noticed immediately and moved to catch the crystals. Lyra's heart leaped. Without thinking, she extended a soft magical shield, slowing the crystal's fall. Together, human skill and Zitherian magic prevented disaster. Ethan glanced around, sensing a presence. "Someone is here," he said quietly. "I feel it." "You don't need to hide forever." Lyra froze. His words were direct yet kind. She did not understand how he could know, yet she felt a strange trust forming. Could she truly reveal herself to him? Could someone be unafraid of the curse? The following days were filled with small meetings. Lyra left gifts and notes. Ethan solved problems, adjusted equipment, and repaired systems, unaware that the princess who admired him was always near. Each time he spoke of courage, loyalty, and curiosity, Lyra felt drawn closer. One evening, as the sun set and the gardens glowed softly, Lyra finally made her decision. She would speak to him, not fully revealed, not yet showing her scar, but with her voice and presence. She chose a quiet corridor leading to the archives and waited. Ethan, checking equipment, heard a soft voice. "Excuse me." He looked up. The figure before him was veiled, delicate yet commanding in presence. Her eyes shone with intelligence and curiosity. Ethan's expression softened, recognizing the strength and thoughtfulness in her gaze. "You're the one who left the gifts?" he asked gently. Lyra nodded. Her hands trembled, but her voice was steady. "Yes, I have watched you. Your courage, your skill. You inspire me. I wanted you to know." Ethan smiled warmly. "I am honored. I have felt your presence as well. There is something remarkable about you. Someone who watches without judgment is rare." Lyra felt a small thrill of hope. Someone had seen her, admired her mind, her courage, and her presence without knowing her scar. She realized for the first time that maybe, just maybe, she was not alone in the world. Their conversations grew in trust and courage. They spoke of Zithera, of humans, of magic, and of technology. Lyra shared stories of the palace gardens and the hidden archives. Ethan shared tales of his homeworld, battles he had fought and challenges he had overcome. Their bond strengthened, built on respect, admiration, and curiosity, but danger still lurked. The sisters noticed the growing connection and plotted in secret. They would not allow Lyra to gain favor with a human, or anyone for that matter. Their jealousy simmered like a storm cloud, waiting for the right moment to strike. Lyra and Ethan, unaware of the sisters' plans, continued their secret meetings. Trust was growing, courage was strengthening, and a spark of friendship, and perhaps more, was forming between human and princess. The palace that had once been a place of isolation for Lyra was now alive with hope. The human warrior, brave and clever, had shown her that the world could see beyond a curse, and Lyra in turn discovered that her intelligence, courage, and kindness could shine even in the shadows. The story was only beginning. Trials would come, danger would strike, but for the first time in her life, Princess Lyra felt that she had an ally, a companion unafraid of her curse, a human warrior who could face the unknown, and perhaps someone who could help her discover the strength she had hidden for so long. In the floating gardens of Zithera, under the twin suns and soft glowing flowers, a princess and a human warrior began to trust each other, and in that trust they found the first threads of a bond that could challenge curses, jealousy, and the fears of an entire world. The palace of Zithera gleamed under the light of the twin suns, but the atmosphere inside was tense. Rumors of a secret connection between Princess Lyra and the human warrior, Ethan, had begun to circulate. Whispers carried through the marble halls and crystal corridors, reaching the ears of her jealous sisters. Their envy burned brighter with each passing day. The eldest sister, Serena, paced her private chambers. "We cannot allow this," she said sharply, her voice echoing off the crystal walls. "A human admires Lyra. How can it be? We cursed her. She should be alone, humiliated, hiding forever." Her younger sister, Valera, glared. "She grows bold. We see her with him. We hear whispers from the court. If we do not act, she may gain power. The curse alone cannot protect her from her own cunning and his foolish admiration." Serena's eyes narrowed. "Then we must expose her. Make her shame public. Let all Zithera see the scar, the curse, the truth. Perhaps then even this human will fear her." Unaware of the sisters' plotting, Lyra and Ethan continued their secret meetings. In the hidden corridors of the palace, they shared knowledge and ideas. Lyra explained the intricacies of Zitherian magic and architecture, while Ethan shared human technology and strategies for problem-solving. Lyra had not yet revealed her scar, keeping it hidden beneath her veil. But she had begun to trust Ethan. His calm, intelligent, and kind nature made her feel safe. His admiration was not for appearances, it was for her mind, her courage, and her spirit. One afternoon, they explored the palace's energy archives, studying floating crystal conduits that regulated the city's power. Ethan suggested a small improvement, carefully explaining human engineering principles. Lyra nodded, impressed by his insight. "You think differently," she said softly. "Humans have a perspective Zitherians do not consider." Ethan smiled. "We are shaped by what we do not know, what we must solve, what we must survive. That is why I admire your courage. You face the consequences of a curse, and yet you remain strong." Lyra's heart stirred. No one had spoken to her like that before. No one had seen her strength without fear. She realized that her isolation, her curse, and even her sister's cruelty could not define her. She had her own courage. She had her own mind. And now she had someone who saw it. But the sisters were already moving. They had learned of one of Lyra's secret meetings and devised a plan to humiliate her publicly. They would stage an event in the Grand Hall, during a royal ceremony attended by courtiers, foreign dignitaries, and advisors. Their goal was to force Lyra to reveal her face and expose the curse, to show the court that she was weak and dangerous. On the day of the ceremony, the palace buzzed with activity. Guests from distant worlds arrived, their clothes and forms strange and colorful. The twin suns shone brightly, illuminating the floating gardens visible through the grand windows. Lyra remained in her tower, her veil hiding the scar. She felt a knot of fear in her stomach. Ethan, unaware of the sisters' scheme, had been invited to demonstrate human technology to the council. He moved confidently through the hall, explaining a device that could stabilize the palace's floating gardens. His voice was calm, precise, and engaging. Then came the moment the sisters had planned. Serena, the eldest, stepped forward with an elegant gesture and announced, "And now let the court see the cursed princess herself." She motioned to Lyra, summoning her to the stage. The audience turned, murmuring in curiosity and apprehension. Lyra's heart raced. She could feel her sister's eyes burning into her back. She could feel the weight of centuries of jealousy and fear pressing down on her. For a moment she considered hiding, retreating into shadows forever. But then she saw Ethan standing nearby, his eyes calm and encouraging. Something inside her shifted. She would not hide. She would not let fear control her. She stepped forward, slowly removing the veil. The scar across her face glowed faintly, the cursed mark shimmering in the sunlight. Gasps echoed through the hall. Courtiers recoiled slightly, whispers spreading like fire. Ethan took a step closer. "Lyra," he said, his voice steady, "your face does not define you. Your courage, your mind, your heart, those are what matter. I see you, not the curse." Lyra's heart soared at his words. She straightened, meeting the eyes of the court with calm defiance. "I am Lyra," she said clearly, her voice ringing through the hall. "I am cursed by my sister's jealousy. I have faced isolation and whispers. But I will not hide. I am more than a scar. I am more than your fear." The sisters' faces twisted with anger and disbelief. Their plan to shame her had failed. Instead of fear, the court now saw courage. Instead of weakness, they saw strength. Whispers of admiration began to spread, slowly replacing the murmurs of doubt. Serena stepped forward, attempting to regain control. "You are reckless, Lyra. A human cannot protect you here. You should hide as the curse demands." Lyra's eyes blazed. "The curse does not control me. I do not need protection. And this human who sees me for who I am stands beside me by choice. Courage and trust are stronger than fear and jealousy." A hush fell over the hall. No one had ever spoken to the sisters this way, and no one had ever seen the cursed princess claim her power so boldly. Even the advisors who had long whispered about her weakness now looked at her with respect. The sisters, humiliated, tried one last tactic. They unleashed minor magic to disorient the audience, attempting to create chaos and shame Lyra further. But Lyra, with a combination of her own magic and Ethan's quick thinking, countered the spell. Together, human skill and Zetherian magic stabilized the hall. The floating platforms held, the energy conduits remained steady, and the guests watched in awe. Ethan whispered to her, "Your courage is incredible. You face danger and fear without flinching." Lyra smiled, a small but genuine expression of pride. "And you see me? That is why I am strong." By the end of the ceremony, the court's perception of Lyra had changed. She was no longer the cursed princess to be pitied or feared. She was a symbol of courage, intelligence, and resilience. The sisters' jealousy had backfired, only highlighting her strength further. That evening, in the quiet of the palace gardens, Lyra and Ethan met secretly. The suns were setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Lyra removed her veil completely, showing her face in trust and confidence. Ethan studied her carefully, admiration shining in his eyes. "You have changed everything today. Not just here, but for yourself. You faced the fear and the curse, and you triumphed." Lyra nodded. "I have learned something important. Fear and judgment cannot control me. Courage, trust, and loyalty, those are stronger. And having someone who sees you for who you are, it gives you strength you did not know you had." Ethan reached out and offered a hand. "Then let us face the future together. Whatever challenges come, we will face them side by side." Lyra took his hand, feeling the warmth and reassurance of human courage. She realized that the journey was far from over. Her sister's jealousy, the curse, and the uncertainties of the world still posed challenges. But for the first time, she did not feel alone. The palace, which had once been a place of shadows and whispers, now seemed alive with possibilities. The gardens glowed softly, reflecting the new light in Lyra's heart. Courage had triumphed over fear. Trust had triumphed over doubt. and together, human and princess, they had taken the first steps toward a future where the curse would no longer define her. As night fell over Zithera, the twin moons rising in the sky, Lyra and Ethan sat in the floating gardens. They spoke of strategies, adventures, and dreams, forming a bond that went beyond magic or appearances. They knew trials would come, jealousy would stir, and dangers awaited, but they also knew that together, they could face anything. And somewhere in the shadows, the sisters watched, powerless against the courage and trust that had taken root. The cursed princess had revealed her strength. The palace of Zithera was quiet in the early morning. The twin suns had just begun to rise, casting soft gold light over the floating gardens and crystal towers. For Princess Lyra, the night had been filled with thought. The events of the past weeks had changed everything. She had faced her sister's jealousy, revealed her scar to the court, and discovered courage she had hidden for years. And through it all, the human warrior Ethan had stood by her side. He had seen her for who she truly was, not the curse, not the whispers, not the shadows. Lyra walked through the gardens, the soft glow of flowers lighting her path. The air was calm, filled with the gentle hum of energy from floating platforms and crystal bridges. Her veil was gone. She no longer felt the need to hide. Her scar, once a source of shame, now felt like a symbol, a reminder of the challenges she had faced and overcome. The sisters, Serena and Valera, had been quiet since the ceremony. The court had seen Lyra's courage and strength, and the whispers of fear had turned into whispers of respect. Even the advisors who had once doubted her now acknowledged her intelligence and resolve. Serena approached Lyra cautiously, her eyes narrowed but softer than before. "Lyra," she said, her voice measured, "you have shown strength we did not expect. Perhaps we were wrong to try to shame you." Lyra regarded her eldest sister calmly. "You were jealous," she said gently. "I do not hold it against you, but I hope you have learned that courage and kindness are stronger than envy and fear." Valera stepped forward, bowing her head. "We underestimated you. You are more than your curse, you are more than we imagined." Lyra smiled, feeling the weight of years of isolation lift slightly. "Thank you. But it is not only about me. Courage, trust, and partnership, these are what truly matter. We are stronger together." The sisters exchanged glances. Though pride still lingered, they could not deny the truth. Lyra's strength had been proven not just by her courage, but by her ability to inspire and lead. Meanwhile, Ethan approached the gardens. He carried a small device, a gift for Lyra, but more importantly, he carried a steady presence that had become essential to her life. His calm confidence was a balance to her thoughts, his courage a mirror to her own. "Good morning," he said, his eyes bright. "I hope the early sun finds you well." Lyra laughed softly. "It does, because you are here." Ethan smiled, his gaze steady. "I wanted to give you this," he said, handing her the small device.
"It is a tool from my world, something to help you continue your work with the palace energy systems."
"But more than that, it is a symbol. Humans are always ready to help those we trust, and I trust you." Lyra took the device carefully, her fingers brushing his. She felt warmth, reassurance, and a sense of partnership that was stronger than anything she had known. "Thank you," she said. "You have taught me much about courage, trust, and hope." Together they walked through the floating gardens, speaking of plans for the palace and for Zithera. Lyra shared ideas for improving the city's energy systems, combining Zitherian magic and human technology. Ethan suggested practical adjustments, offering solutions that were both clever and efficient. Their teamwork was seamless, built on mutual respect, trust, and admiration. Days passed and the palace adjusted to the new reality. Lyra's courage and intelligence became a model for others. Citizens admired her, seeing that a cursed princess could rise above fear and judgment. The sisters, though still cautious, began to work alongside her, learning from her strategies and decisions. Even small acts of cooperation showed that jealousy could be tempered by respect. One afternoon, the royal council gathered in the grand hall. Lyra spoke with confidence, explaining improvements to the palace energy system and proposing new ideas for city management. Ethan assisted, demonstrating human technology with clear explanations and careful precision. The council members listened attentively, impressed by their partnership. The sisters were present, observing quietly, no longer plotting, no longer whispering. They had witnessed firsthand that courage, wisdom, and teamwork could overcome fear and jealousy. After the council meeting, Lyra and Ethan walked to the palace balcony overlooking the city. The floating gardens shimmered in the light of the twin suns, and the city below hummed with energy and life. Lyra felt a deep sense of accomplishment. She had faced her curse, confronted her sister's envy, and found someone who saw her for who she truly was. Ethan looked at her with admiration. "You have changed everything here," he said softly. "Your courage has inspired not just me, but everyone who sees it." Lyra turned to him, a smile lighting her face. "And you have shown me that courage does not need magic. You have shown me trust and partnership, and that is worth more than any spell or shield." They stood together, the princess and the human warrior, a symbol of strength, courage, and hope. Around them, Scythera began to shift. Fear and judgment gave way to trust and admiration. The palace, once a place of whispers and shadows, now reflected possibility, growth, and partnership. As the twin moons rose, casting silver light over the floating gardens, Lyra knew that the journey was far from over. Challenges would come. Enemies and dangers might appear. But she had learned that courage, trust, and collaboration could overcome fear, jealousy, and magic. And with Ethan at her side, she knew they could face anything together. The sisters, though still struggling with pride, approached her once more. "Lyra," Serena said quietly, "we see now that strength is not just in power or magic. It is in courage, in heart, and in wisdom. We are sorry for what we did," Valera nodded, "and we will work to support you, not oppose you. You have earned our respect." Lyra smiled, a sense of peace filling her heart. "Thank you. That is all I ever wanted, for us to work together, not as rivals, but as family." The sisters bowed slightly, a gesture of respect and reconciliation. Though the past could not be undone, they had acknowledged her courage and accepted her as a leader. The palace, once divided by jealousy and fear, was beginning to unite. Ethan took Lyra's hand gently. "Are you ready for what comes next?" he asked. Lyra looked out over the city, the floating gardens, and the people below. "Yes," she said firmly. "We will face it together. Whatever comes, we will be ready." That night, as the stars appeared in the sky above Scythera, Lyra and Ethan stood on the balcony, watching the city glow with life. She no longer felt the weight of isolation or shame. The curse that had once defined her face no longer defined her spirit. She had faced fear, confronted jealousy, and discovered courage beyond imagination. And now she had a partner, someone who saw her truth, admired her mind, and shared her dreams. Together they would explore new possibilities, challenge dangers, and build a future where courage and trust would lead the way. Lyra's story, once one of shadows and whispers, had transformed into a tale of strength, partnership, and hope. She had shown that even a cursed princess could rise above fear and judgment. And she had discovered that true courage often comes from seeing the best in others and allowing them to see the best in you. The palace gates opened to the world beyond Scythera, welcoming visitors from distant stars. Humans, aliens, and travelers marveled at the beauty of the city and the courage of its leaders. Lyra and Ethan walked among them, sharing knowledge, solving problems, and inspiring trust. In the floating gardens, under the glow of the twin moons and stars, Lyra finally removed all barriers. Her scar remained, but it was no longer a symbol of shame. It was a symbol of survival, courage, and growth. She smiled at Ethan, knowing that together, they could face any challenge, overcome any fear, and lead Scythera into a future full of hope and unity. And so, the cursed princess who had once hidden her face in fear and loneliness became a symbol of courage and inspiration. The human warrior who had chosen to see beyond appearances became her partner, her ally, and her friend. Together they began a new chapter, a chapter of strength, trust, and endless possibilities. The story of Princess Lyra and Ethan would be remembered across Scythera and beyond, not as a tale of curses or jealousy, but as a story of courage, loyalty, and the power of seeing the true heart of someone. The curse had not ended her. It had led her to the strength she had always carried within, and to the human who chose to stand beside her. Under the rising twin suns, Lyra felt hope and determination fill her heart. The shadows of the past had faded. The future was bright, and together she and Ethan would face it side by side.